Hey everybody, this is Munson Steve, and welcome to Health IQ. It is important that you raise your IQ each and every day, and for that we have trusted, professional, studied scholars, dedicated, trained, committed, and unfailing to deliver and remove any stigma and ignorance about healthcare. I'm speaking of none other than Dr. Ted Love. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to be here, Munson.
You know, why? Why become a physician? Why just even get ready to be involved in something that would take an arduous task scholarly, an arduous task emotionally, an office or a location that may not welcome your kind? Why become a Black physician?
Well, Munson, I grew up in the Jim Crow South, a poor kid on a farm. And the person that we most admired in our community was our family physician. We loved that guy. And when I was growing up, I was good in math, I was good in science. And that was the role model that I gravitated to. And I did that when I was very young, and I never wavered. I continued on and pursued a career in medicine and science, and it's been a great ride for me.
So that's a pretty quick trip for something that took years to perfect. Why'd you select the college you selected? Who impacted you the most while you were there to make you know you were on your path as a sponsor in intellectual and scientific movement?
So I went to a small college outside of Philadelphia called Haverford College. The way I ended up at Haverford is because it fit my criteria of being academically rigorous. It's really like a small Ivy League school. But possibly the real reason I ended up there is that the director of admissions called my house one day. And as I said, we were a poor family, and my mother answered the phone. And when she answered the phone, she was so nervous that the college was calling. And she said, "But here's Ted." And the dean of admissions said, "No, we're not calling to talk to Ted. We've talked to Ted. We want to talk to you and your husband about why we want Ted to be here and why we think Ted should be here and will develop best here." My mother had never had anyone like that talk to her like that. And that was the beginning of me saying, there's something different here. So my mother wanted me to go there, and I went there and I got great preparation. When I was there, the most influential person for me was probably my chemistry professor. And the truth is, that is probably the subject where I struggled the most. And I spent so much time in his office. I even spent time in his house because I wanted to make sure that I did well. And the only way I could do well was to work hard. And I did need more attention, and he gave me that attention. His name is Claude Whitner. And my wife and I have actually subsidized a scholarship at the college now for students going into science called the Whitner Love Scholarship. So he made a big impact on me. Because of the impact he made on me, I worked hard. I did well. I ended up at Yale Medical School, where I had, again, great training, great mentorship, and a great opportunity to learn. I've always loved to learn, Munson, and most of what I was doing, while some people might consider it to be arduous, for me it was pleasure. It was pleasurable to learn about the human body and why it works in one way or another, or what is the disease and how could we go about trying to manage that disease or even prevent that disease. So this has been really a great intersection of my desire to use science and medicine to help people and my kind of insatiable appetite to learn and understand things.
And I was, I liked everything but poor. I think society when you said mother and father, that's a pretty rich family from a Black perspective from the beginning. And Lord knows if you made it to church, you got a double blessing at the end of that day. But just to have two-parent household and somebody who just gave you love sounds very, very rich. And society said you were poor, but I'm telling you now, brother, you were in a rich scenario.
Well, and you are right. You are right. I should have said financially poor, because there were 8 kids. So I have 4 brothers and two sisters. I have 4 brothers and 3 sisters. So there were 8 of us. And it was a loving family. And as you pointed out, Munson, I had parents that taught me very basic things like you can be as successful as anyone. My father would say to me, put things into your head, and that way people can never take them away from you. Knowledge is power. There were so many things that my parents said to me, and I had so much support from my siblings that I was in that way probably among the richest in the country.
Yeah, no, I just love to hear it, and as a storyteller, I would tell it that way, because those riches have obviously planted a lot of seeds that you harvest, and we are harvesting here. Science. If you could talk to all the little Black boys and girls and everybody else who would hear it, what would you whisper on why they should love and be curious about mastering math and science, and that they too can be a doctor?
Well, I would cite myself as an example because there's nothing inherently superior about me. And in fact, Munson and I started out telling you about my struggles in chemistry. I do think one of the things I've learned over the years is the person who wins or loses is often dictated by who quits first. And what I've found is that when I'm struggling with something, it's an opportunity for me to get help, number one, from somebody who can help me, and number two, for me to dig in and show commitment. We've all heard this line about luck is when preparation meets opportunity. I very much feel that way, but the preparation is really, really very important. I'm a big football fan, big college football fan, and I'm sure you probably read on social media about Nick Saban talking about in the national championship game, his backup receivers. He didn't think they had prepared to really step in and do what they need to do when the starters were out due to injury. And I think that I would say to the young Black kids out there, number one, you could do anything you want to do. It may require effort, it may require seeking help, but you can do anything you want to do. And the other thing I would say is be prepared. People gave me opportunities, I think, to fail, but I was not going to fail. I was prepared when those opportunities came along, and I think that's really, really important. Be prepared, seek help, and set your dreams on what you want to do, because those are the things that are going to make you happy. Doing something that someone else wants you to do is not the pathway to happiness. You've got to determine what you want, and you've got to get after it.
But you have an eye and a mind that I think we're working to share here at Health IQ. The mindset that most things are possible if I show up.
Yeah. And
then when I show up prepared, I can be on the team and I can win because the possibility is already inside me. So I hear that. I think the other thing is, why be curious in your quest for knowledge? Why love to learn? That's something you said. Why love to learn? Why be curious about the body and how it works? Why is it so important? And why was it important to you?
Yeah, well, I think, it probably goes back to a little bit what my dad said, which is knowledge is power, man. I wanted to be influential. in my community. As I went through school, I wanted to be influential in the classroom. As I got into my career, I wanted to be influential. I wanted to be somebody that people looked at and said that he represents the standard. He's setting the standard. So I think a lot of this is about making sure that you really, really achieve your full potential. And I don't think our potentials vary that much. I think some people do a much better job of getting to near the maximum of their potential, and others don't for various reasons. I do think getting support is important. And I cannot overemphasize the support that I've had, starting at home with my family, with the support I got from mentors in college, in medical school. Support is important. We all need support. But I think one of the things that people need to learn is don't be afraid to ask for it. Don't be afraid to seek it. And don't turn it down when it comes.
So all of a sudden there's an area of specialty, something that piques your interest. Why the passion in the area, if you'll share with our viewers, and when did the light go on that this needed special attention?
So at least medically and by training, I'm a cardiologist, I'm a heart specialist. And the reason I got so excited about cardiology is probably a little bit my personality. My patients in cardiology would often go from being very near dead, very sick, to a year later running the Boston Marathon. And that is something I love. I love the capacity to intervene in a situation that could be or is grievous and turn it into something that is extraordinarily positive. Many areas of medicine represented incremental improvements in patients, and sometimes just slowing the rate of a bad outcome. In cardiology, we could often turn a tragedy into, as I said, a patient who runs the Boston Marathon. And I love that. I love the interventional nature and the capacity for those interventions to completely reset the table.
Sickle cell. Why?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm African American, and sickle cell had been underinvested in. I think all of us who understand how healthcare has been studied, invested in, from the NIH to industry, understand that we would spend $1,000 on a disease like cystic fibrosis for every $1 that we would spend on sickle cell disease, despite the fact that sickle cell is 3 times more prevalent in this country. And I think those of us who are willing to be honest will say it's because sickle cell primarily affects people of color, primarily African Americans. We were not at the seat of the table determining what the NIH budget was going to be. We were not head of R&D determining what a company would invest in sickle cell disease. So I came out of retirement actually because I was offered the opportunity to become CEO and head of a company that would invest in sickle cell disease. And I'm happy to mention and tell you, I've raised about $2 billion, billion, not million, $1 billion.
The B.
With the B. And we've probably spent about $1 billion of it, and it's almost all been on sickle cell disease. And that's not gonna change. We're not gonna stop until we've done for sickle cell disease what we've done for many, many, many disorders. Cystic fibrosis, we're now thinking that we can give people a pretty normal life expectancy. And the life expectancy of CF patients when I was a kid was no longer than sickle cell. But we've made progress by investment. So our company is well-funded. We have really smart people. We have really hardworking people, and we partner with the best people in the world, from patient advocates to scientists, clinicians around the world. It's this kind of collaborative, well-funded effort that allows you to put a man on the moon. And if we can put a man on the moon, we can solve sickle cell. We understand it, and GBT is going to solve sickle cell. It's not even a source of intellectual debate for me. I understand the disease, and I understand how we can solve it. And we've already made a big step towards solving it. We have our first product available for patients in the United States. It's just this week been approved for patients in Europe as well. It's been approved now for patients in the Middle East, where there is also sickle cell. So we're making progress. We've got more work to do, but we're going to deliver, and we know what we need to do.
So best of a generation for bringing a product, having a Black man, and Charles Drew's probably clapping and excited that you decided to come out of retirement, Michael Jordan of medicine, and be a GOAT in the area of sickle cell. How does it feel to know that you are affecting the lives and kind of removing some of the tears of mothers and children that are in such severe pain, and the possibility that they too can feel more normal in their ability to live their lives?
It's overwhelming. I mean, I've definitely shed quite a few tears of joy. I've also shed some tears of sorrow in sickle cell disease. One person who comes to mind is a gentleman who was an artist, and he was on our product, Oxybrita, starting, I think, during the clinical studies, and then ultimately after it was approved. And he flew out to our company, installed a beautiful piece of powerful art to thank us for what we had done in making this therapy. But he told me during that visit, his body was ravaged when he started on the drug. There was so much damage done that even though we were helping him, we could not correct the severe underlying problems. And not surprisingly, a short while later, he died. That was very painful. But the thing that I really want to think about, Munson, is what else he said to me. And he said, I want you to continue on this mission. I want you to make this available for the baby that has this disease and keep them from developing all the complications and ravages of this disease. You can protect them before they become who I am today, and not just provide them help, but actually completely change the trajectory of their life. So I've experienced both ends of it, right? I've experienced the tragedy of intervening too late, but I've also enjoyed the benefit of people saying, oh, my life is very different. I play with my kids now. I can go to work now. I'm doing things that I could never do. And we're now hearing about children who can play with their siblings and keep up with their parents because our drug normalizes or near normalizes their hemoglobin so they can carry oxygen to their tissues and function normally. So it's very gratifying. And I try to use both the positive and the negative to be motivated to do the right thing, to change things in a constructive manner.
So how'd you name the drug and share the name of the drug with you? How'd it come about? I do want to say one more thing. When you share that, after that, if you share the importance of Black people participating in clinical studies.
I'm happy to do that. So the name of the drug is Oxybrita. And we did what many, particularly small companies do. We ended up, having a professional firm help us come up with some names. Ox obviously refers to the oxygen delivery aspect of the drug. And then we actually had a vote in our company, and it came out as the most popular drug in our company. So it was a very inclusive process. There was some professional engagement in the process, as is important in naming therapies, but we were very participative across our company. It is vital to have people of color in clinical trials. And I could give you chapter and verse on a number of examples of how things worked out very well because we've had people of color, and how things worked out poorly because we did not have people of color in clinical studies. But I will tell you that when we started our company, even before we had a drug to put into the clinic, to put into clinical studies, I was out there going to sickle cell meetings. Our employees were doing sickle cell walks. We were going to sickle cell events, buying them blankets, buying them water, because sickle cell patients really need to stay warm and stay hydrated. We were there before we asked them for anything. And I think that really is important because it's, you're a little bit more suspicious of people when the first time you see them is when they need something from you. And I think that it's a good example that we set, that we showed up even before we had any kind of request. We showed up to help people. And therefore, when we asked them to help us do our clinical studies or design our clinical studies, they really felt like they were a respected partner. Respect is very, very important, and you earn it. You don't buy respect. You earn respect. So we got out there, we got into the game. We were willing to earn the respect because we wanted it. We wanted it, and if you want something, you ought to be willing to earn it.
Lastly, thanks for the dedication, obviously. But what would you tell your younger self and other young doctors who are just getting in, knowing what they face in terms of health disparities, employment disparities, about keeping the course so that they too can be a part of biotechnology, running a $10 billion corporation, and saving the lives of young Black children who need their mind power?
Well, I think I would say don't give up. Don't get discouraged. I would tell people adversity is part of life. I tell my kids, we're not looking, we used to use this phrase when I was a kid that I thought was bad. It was called Easy Street. People were trying to find Easy Street. I tell my kids, Easy Street doesn't exist. And even if I could find it, I wouldn't want to be on that street. I want to be on the challenging street. I want to be on the track, trying to get around faster than everybody else. I'm not looking for Easy Street. I'm looking for the street that I can get on to have fun, to make contributions, to change the world in a way that I think is better, more equitable. So I would say, take on adversity. Don't fear adversity. I tell my kids, you solve a problem, the first thing you do is you get up and you look for the next problem. People who solve problems make a big difference. People who run away from problems don't make much of a difference.
Super. Well, I want to thank you for coming on Health IQ. I look forward to staying connected. And for all of those who are suffering, where can they get more information on your company and the product that you have brought to market?
Well, there are a few sites on the web that I could refer them to. One is our website, www.gbt.com. The other is www.Sickle Cell Speaks, which is a website that has a lot of information about sickle cell. And then there's www.oxbrida.com as well. So those are sites where you can learn about our company, our therapy, and about sickle cell disease.
Well, Dr. Ted Love, I want to thank you for coming to Health IQ and spending time with us so that we could learn about the solutions that you provided for sickle cell, and thanks to your parents and the love that you continue to give.
Thank you, Bunsen. It's a pleasure.